On Monday, I sent my client a trip proposal, and it took them maybe about 10 minutes to read. Do you think it took me 10 minutes to make? Not at all. Hi, I'm Michelle. I'm a travel advisor in Ontario, Canada, and welcome to my YouTube channel, Michelle Plans Travel. In this episode, I want to talk to you about the difference between booking and planning a trip and what happens behind the scenes when travel advisors plan out a trip proposal. Booking a trip and planning a trip are two very different things. Booking a trip is quite easy, really. You can just go on and book your flights, your hotel, your tours, sort of all these parts independently. Planning a trip means that all of the pieces are thought about at the beginning as a cohesive whole. And you plan to make sure that they all work together, they all line up and fit together so that the trip goes as smoothly as possible and that the clients get the best experience. All of the different components of a trip work together and they affect one another. So for example, things to consider or things that people don't think about doing is maybe they booked a cheap hotel, but it's really inconveniently located. Or maybe they chose the cheapest flights, but they have to go through 2 or 3 stops to get somewhere where they could have gotten in one direct flight had they just paid maybe an extra $200. Sometimes people will book a trip because it seems cheap, or maybe it's a package and it's cheap, but what they fail to realize is that maybe things are closed that week. So they can't do any of the attractions that they wanted to do because they didn't check to see what was open. Maybe that's why the trip was cheaper in the first place. I actually had this happen to a client of mine, and they had found a great price on a resort or somewhere that they wanted to go and had booked in for a couple of weeks at this resort, which was fantastic. But it was at a time of year where the flights to that particular place, they didn't go nonstop from the airport they were leaving from. And so instead of having an easy nonstop or one-stop connecting flight, because of the time of year, they actually ended up having to stop twice on the way there and twice on the way back, which was not a fun experience for them overall. And I think if they had to book that again, they would say that they wouldn't do that. Booking is just simply making a reservation. Very seldomly do I ever just book a trip these days. There is the rare occasion when somebody might walk into my office and they might know exactly where they want to go, exactly what week they want to go, exactly what resort and the room category. And that's, you know what, it's wonderful, it's easy, and that I would call a booking. But more often than not, even with something as quote unquote simple as an all-inclusive, it's not simple. There is a lot of planning and research that goes into presenting you with a booking option. And that's really what most people just don't see, and maybe they don't understand. When somebody comes to me with a travel idea, I sort of go through some different stages before I actually present to them a trip overview or a planned out trip that they can agree to or that we can adjust. So first I will discuss over the phone, or hopefully they're in and we chat. We have an initial consultation and I find out what are they looking for? When do they kind of want to go? When are they thinking of going? Where are they thinking of going? Most importantly, why are they going? What is their reason behind the trip? That sort of will bring out, I guess you could call, the essence of the trip. And again, I touched on it in my first video. What kinds of things do they like to do? How do they like to travel? What experience do they want on this trip? Again, even if it's just an all-inclusive, what are they looking for? So we have that initial conversation. I then typically myself will start with looking at flights and dates. I like to find the best value for money, not the cheapest, the best value for your money for flights. And that can typically mean, again, a direct nonstop flight or the least amount of stops that can get you most directly. And it's a combination of what are you going to pay more for working with what's going to be the most direct. Once I sort of have the flights nailed down, the best dates to go, I will then start looking for accommodation, get a few of those sort of lined up, but then I will go back to activities, excursions, tours, other cities that you might want to visit while you're there. Because I want to make sure that I get your hotel lined up with proximity to what you want to go and see, or again, as I mentioned, proximity to transportation. Whether it be a bus station, hop on, hop off bus, or a bus station that you're taking a one-day trip from, a one-day day trip, or a train station, or a tube station, or a car rental. Maybe you want to go and grab a car rental for a day or two while you're somewhere. And for example, I had a client who asked me to put together a proposal for a trip, and they wanted to stay in London and do a bunch of day trips. Then they also wanted to rent a car for a day. And originally they had asked me to stay by London Heathrow Airport, and that they were just going to do day trips from there. But having booked London quite a lot, I do know that most day trips from London leave at central London hotels. They will leave from a central London hotel. So that would have required them going into and out of the city every day. And it's a fair hump from London Heathrow into the city of London. And so what I suggested was that they spend the first portion of their trip in central London, close to a tube station, close to where they could get to their day trip departures. And then they would go and stay in an airport hotel close to the end of their trip, so that they could rent a car from one of the airport rent-a-cars. Plus, London Heathrow is on the edge of town, and it was closer to where they wanted to go for a day trip and drive themselves to. And after that, they were going to fly to another destination. So it made sense for them to return to the airport so that they could get on a plane the next day. That's what the planning is all about. So once I get your flights sort of thought about, I get a couple of different options for accommodations, I get some different excursions kind of lined up, then I compare. I go and read reviews. I look at pictures. I go and find out what the room categories actually mean. So when it says a double sea view, does that mean it's two people in a room? Does it mean you get a double bed? Are you actually getting to look at the sea? I look at your excursion reviews. So are people happy with the service? Did they find it was good value for money? Did the tour guide show up on time? Are you actually getting to see all the little things that you want to see in where you're going? For example, the Colosseum. Are you only going on one floor? Are you going into the underground? What are you actually booking? Sometimes too with tours, especially in places like Europe, really tricky right now because there are a lot of third-party websites that are selling tickets. And I have been a victim of this myself whilst booking for someone else. There are third-party websites selling tickets for things like the Louvre, for Musée d'Orsay. So a lot of places in Paris. There's third-party websites for London and Barcelona and Austria. There, pretty much any major city that you can think of, there's going to be third-party websites now selling these tickets. The issue with that is that they don't actually have the tickets in hand to give to you. They have to go to the official website, just like you should have done and I should have done originally, and they have to go and try and buy those tickets. So I have to make sure that what I am trying to book you is a legitimate excursion, a legitimate activity. So then I get those things lined up. I make sure everything works. I double check opening times. I double check, is there any festivals going on? Is there something closed for a religious reason? That kind of thing. I double check, how are you going to get from point A to point B? Do I need to plan a transfer for you to get from one part to another part? Going back to the hotel, I just double check that it has the amenities that you asked for. If you have asked for an apartment type hotel, is there a grocery store or somewhere where you can buy things to make your breakfast with if you don't include breakfast? Is that close enough for you to walk to? If you like to have wine in your room later and you don't want to spend hotel prices on a glass of wine, is there a little shop that you can buy wine from? So I get all of those things planned out. And then I spend time writing it out so that it makes sense to my clients in chronological order what times and what dates and what's happening. So flights, transfers, first hotel, activities lined up, times, all of that, and then pricing. At this point, with the current job that I have, I like to give people individual pricing so that they can choose to keep or remove things that may be a make or break for the budget. Maybe there's a must do that they're going to keep on their list, but maybe there's another tour for a couple $100 that they can take out just to save a little bit of money. I put it all together. It makes sense. And I either present it to the client in person or I send it as an email. And I make sure that they know that we can discuss the trip so they can come back to me with questions. I can answer the questions. I make adjustments. And then we go again and we go over it again until it's as right as possible. And all of that takes quite a bit of time, as you can imagine. So does it cost more to use a travel advisor? Generally, off the hop, shall we say, no, it doesn't. The price that you're going to see online is generally the same as what we have on our systems. There's no difference between, let's say, a Transat, Sunwing, Air Canada vacation package that you see online and what I see online for the exact same dates, rooms, everything being comparable apples to apples. The commission that we get is already built into the price that you see online, and you're paying that commission either way. You're either paying it directly to the supplier or it comes to us. Now, some travel agencies do charge professional fees. I work for one of those agencies that charges professional fees, and I'm glad we do for a couple of reasons. One, in all honesty, we put in a lot of work, as I'm sure you can see, into our proposals. We're not just whipping off the fastest thing that we can find so that we can get you through and get the next person booked so that we can just grab commission. We are taking time to plan out something that's really going to work for you. So, our expertise and our professionalism, that's what you're paying for. And it kind of does weed out people who, if they really do think that they can book it online themselves and they don't want to pay the extra fee, that's absolutely fine. And we completely understand that. And we're more than happy to let them know that ahead of time. And so we're always very upfront with what we charge. But all in all, very reasonable for the dedication that you get. As I mentioned last week, your experience with us, it doesn't just stop once you've booked the trip. We're there for you every step of the way. So we're making sure that your travel documents are ready, they're printed, they're correct. I make sure that you have all of your tickets for any excursion that you're going on, any entrances that you need, they're all lined up. I will very often make you a folder with everything laid out, again, chronologically, day by day, so you know exactly where you need to be. Train tickets are in there. Everything is in there. If you have an issue while you're away or you have a question, you can reach out to us and we'll help you as best as possible or give you advice on how to find help while you're in destination. And if something does go wrong, we are there to help you out. If you book online, fantastic, but there isn't going to be anyone to help you through anything if something goes wrong, like again, like I mentioned before, with a strike or a hurricane or something like that. And when you come back, we want to connect with you. We want to find out how your trip was. I want to find out, would you do something differently next time? What would you suggest to my other clients that maybe want to go where you went? What was your favorite thing about the trip? Just so that we can really connect with you and make sure that we have exactly what you want for the next time that you book. If you've ever wondered if using a travel advisor is right for your next trip, I would love you to leave your questions in the comments. Let me know maybe what part surprises you the most about the overall travel advisor planning process. Thank you so much for watching this episode. If you like what you've seen so far, please like and subscribe, follow along as we go on this journey together.